an inspirational talk by our own Reverend Philip Falcone.
God bless and thank you for that, Reverend Thomas. And just to remind us, the fourth key is the keys to the living biophysical and astrophysical universe are the living light pyramids of life, existing within every structure, with every field of creation. Pyramids, plural. Life. Life is always single, but it's many. Again, this we are God effect there. But enough of that. Continuing with the fourth key, we're told, or I should say, it was presented for your consideration, that we are transformed through these light frequencies, through these frequencies of the pyramids. We even entertain the idea that we may be these pyramids, and that these pyramids are receptacles of information. And it is this information that we receive continuously that connects us to the divine. And we are told, with this explanation, humankind can see how our conscious mind receives continuous communication with the brain from all forms of consciousness, relativity in our consciousness zone, which pulsate thought forms through a thinking light cell by photon amplification of light crystals. Let's not get into all of that bit there. The photons and the light crystals, let's not get into that. Let's consider this conscious mind receiving continuous communication from all forms of consciousness. And when he says relativity, he's maybe implying that it's relative to ourselves, because we have these spheres of influence. And this is why they talk about seeing these globes, these orbs. They're spheres, and they call them souls. They're spheres of information, and spheres they're believed to be the perfect shape because they're round, they're continuous, there's no edge, there's no beginning, there's no end. We've got this information that's continuously flowing, and everything around us connects us with different intelligences. It implies that everything around us has some form of intelligence, despite what we may think. This bowl here may have some information there, and we call information intelligence for whatever reason. But there it is. I can feel it this time. It's right there. Very subtle. And if we but relax ourselves, again, this receptive state, that's the key to all communication, is being in this receptive state. And when we're in that receptive state, we can hear the subtleties of information, the subtleties of flow coming through us, coming to us. Now, the one thing we have to keep in mind, we have to remember, is that we are both tangible and intangible beings. And with that, I'm going to ask you, what are your thoughts on that? How do you perceive that concept of being intangible and tangible?
That whole concept of the intangible and the tangible. The tangible is so dominant in our senses and our awareness. The intangible is certainly there. And for me, certainly it was maybe an intellectual awakening, or to begin to allow that awareness into my consciousness, and to begin, which I think is the pattern for understanding all truths, is to allow it into your awareness and then look for evidence of it. And as we allow, and as we're in that receptive state, as you so nicely described, Reverend Philip, there are experiences as well as I guess what I will call information that comes to us, some sort of communication that cannot be accounted for in the tangible. And as we begin to learn from the experiences of others, for other great prophets and masters that have written about their own experiences, we began to see that this is a big, grand picture of the intangible and the tangible, and that this eternal part of ourselves that I like to call our spiritual self is the part that is focused on having this tangible experience, which is why it's so dominant. And it's not about escaping it. It is about reconnecting with home base, reconnecting with the intangible part of ourselves, which is connected to the source, which has the greater vision for what we are doing in our tangible life. And I need to end it right there. This is your talk, Reverend Philip, and it is an excellent subject. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I agree with Reverend Thomas that the tangible does tend to dominate our lives, and I guess that's natural since we're, solid flesh and blood people, and the challenge is, I would say, possibly to try to push the tangible aside sometimes and focus on the intangible, and possibly get a good balance of that with the tangible, because that intangible certainly adds a layer of knowledge and truth and peace and harmony to the tangible side. So I think finding the time and taking the time to do that is probably one of the biggest challenges, because especially today in our topsy-turvy society. So it's that's the challenge. But I like the idea, and I like the idea of possibly trying to bring it more into a balance and more of a focus, the intangible side. I guess it's
okay. Wonderful.
Trying to with intangibles, it's like, for me, trying to grasp a wisp of vapor. I can't grasp it. It slips through my fingers. And even when my mind is working on an intangible, again, fleeting. It's just fleeting. And that can be so frustrating for me, because I want to hang on to it. I want to cuddle with it. I want to rub my face against it. I want it, I want to wrap myself in it. And you can't. I can't do that unless it's just for a brief moment. And for those, like the others have said, I mean, we've come back in this physical form to learn a new lesson that we haven't learned in previous lifetime. And the few brief instances where I've thought I've remembered being in spirit. I really get homesick sometimes. So it's like, okay, can't focus on that. You're here to learn a lesson in this physical world. So let's get tangible. That's how it is for me.
Cool.
I'll never hear that song again the same way, Beth. Sorry. Ditto on everything everybody has said. I was trying to put a percentage on the tangible side versus the intangible side, and 75 sort of came to mind, but it could even be more than that, I guess, because I feel like most of my existence is the tangible part, and the intangible part is so small, and I would like it to be bigger. Like you said, Beth, I would like to grab a hold of maybe my hardest 7 spirits of God affirmation is the one about the timing not being in my hands. And every time we read this, and every single week we read this, and I say, that's the one. That's the one. I don't need to know. I read that line that I don't need to know that I surrender all need to, but you know what? I don't. I don't surrender all need to know the timing, because I'm not always so patient. I try to be patient, but I'm not always. So anyway, that's my contribution. I do agree with everything everyone said, and it's kind of depressing, because, like I said, I feel like I want to be more of a part of it, but I do not devote as much time. I'm going to own this. I don't devote as much time to it as I should.
There's something here that I would like to point out, because it seems that many of you have overlooked it, because I said that we are tangible and intangible. We're both. We're not one or the other. We're both. And because we're both, it's what makes us the tangible and intangible. The body is here, yes. And the mind is it skates through the quantum realm. Because the mind is what brings the past or the future to the present. It's what connects the present to both of those. And, well, many of you suggested, we're caught up in the tangible. And that's where your awareness rests. Because wherever you go to first is what's strongest in your mind, what is impinging upon you the most. And yes, it is that tangible aspect, but we've got that intangible aspect that pushes us to go in that direction. One of the things about science, and I hope I don't get this wrong, but I might, is that the physical encapsulates the non-physical. And the non-physical causes the physical to move. So just with that, and you may appreciate this, Sharon, it's a 50-50 split. Because in order to accomplish anything, we need the physical to do it. We need the intangible to direct it. While we're focused on the physical reality, and because we're so focused on the physical reality, the tangible aspect, as you indicated, we tend to limit the communications that occur because we're focused there. So communication is mostly on a physical level. Phones, Zoom, what we're doing now, that's all on the physical level. But communication occurs on all planes. It's a matter of attuning our awareness, emotions. The emotions we broadcast are being received by others. When you're sitting next to somebody and you get up and you feel, ooh, man, they just feel icky. There's a communication there. Although you don't know where the ickiness comes from, because it could be their emotions are feeling kind of sticky or their thoughts are kind of icky. We don't know, but we got the gist of it. We just don't feel comfortable with them. Or when someone says they just don't feel right, there's something off about them. Again, there's that communication taking place, and that communication takes place in the intangible aspect. The types of communications that we look for, and this is evident in our meditations, when we share what we experience in the mediumship class, the communications that we tend to look for are those types of communications we recognize. And again, this comes back to this whole idea of limitations. These are the limitations that we unknowingly place on ourselves because we've got these expectations, and there's nothing wrong with those expectations. Those expectations are what get us moving in a direction. The problem becomes when we hold on to those expectations, and then they become a stumbling block. These communications that we experience, we have to readjust our awareness or readjust our thinking or readjust our sight. It's like figuring out what pair of glasses you want to wear. If you want to wear them for reading, I think we're all old enough to where we're looking at reading glasses now. I know I am. So, and that's what it is. It's fine-tuning our thoughts to be aware of those gentle inspirations that come to us. Now, we talked about the pyramid. And when the pyramid is unfolded, because it's these triangles that rest upon a cube, when we unfold the pyramid, it forms a cross, often referred to as the mundane cross. And what this represents is the four elements: fire, water, earth, and air. Now, two of those elements are physical. That's water and earth. And water is more malleable than earth because water takes the shape of whatever container it's in. And then we have fire. Now, fire is both tangible and intangible. It's tangible because we can see it, but it's intangible because we can't grasp it, we can't touch it. And then there's air. Can anybody tell me what air feels like? Air is the only element that we can experience. That's the only way we know it's there, is through our experience. So, with that, what might be the message that might be sent by that pyramid being unfolded with those 4 elements?
Repeat the question.
Yeah, if I can remember the question. The mundane cross with these representing the 4 elements, earth, water, these are the 2 solid, the tangible elements. One is solid, the other is malleable, and then fire, which is both, and then air, which is completely intangible. And it can only be experienced. What message might this be bringing to you?
You mean when I see it or when I hear about it?
Either.
I guess, the first thing that comes to my mind is that these are the elements that create balance.
Okay.
And you can attribute different aspects, depending on what philosophy you're coming from, to these different elements. For instance, in Hinduism, there's a lot of talk about, heat and cold, and, I guess just a wide variety of things come to mind. So it's hard to nail down. It just depends on what angle you're coming from.
I'll give you an angle. Communication.
What kind of communication? Spiritual? Spirit communication? Communication between human beings in the physical?
Keep going. Physical.
Animal?
Malleable. Tangible, intangible, and then completely intangible. I'll leave you with that.
Okay. Sounds good.
Well, we're kind of back to the beginning of the intangible and the tangible and the intangible part that makes up our complete being, and that is probably the part that was tripping up Rachel. And understand that we're talking about that, this physical and how this all works together. A metaphor that works for me to kind of understand that I will share, and then I'll just leave that. But is Neil Armstrong walking on the moon. And Neil Armstrong is an intelligent, capable physical being that could go off and do whatever he decides to do. He is the one that's there. He's the one that has to do the walk. But he was able to accomplish something far greater by accepting the communication from a greater intelligence, which was the collective intelligence of ground control, which helped him through his walk on the moon to do that successfully, to accomplish the mission, and etc. And for me, that is a metaphor that brings clear this idea of our intangible part and our tangible part, because our tangible part is certainly capable of doing everything that the tangible part is capable of doing, from the standpoint of going off half-cocked with no direction or poor direction and make bad decisions and all the things that we need to do. The idea of connecting with our intangible part is to have better guidance and better direction, something from a higher place of perspective that gives us an overview and can provide the guidance, but we have to do the walk. we are the ones that do the walk and make the decisions and have the experiences and all of that. And the four elements kind of describe what you might call planes or layers of this relationship, from the tangible through into the intangible. And I'll leave that right there, Reverend Philip. Thank you.
Okay. We have these four different elements. Tangible, that's not movable, written in stone, so to speak. Malleable, water, which can easily be writing on paper. We can change that. It's changeable. We've got fire, which is both tangible and intangible. Phone communication, radio communication. And then we've got air, which is completely intangible. Another form of communication. These four elements, they have these representations across the board. But our conversation is in the area of communication. And as our awareness is tuned. We've got someone here that's seems as though they're yabbering in my ear, but they're sending me. I'm getting these thoughts, and sometimes they get jumbled up. Our awareness is tuned to these different representations of the elements, to these different degrees, as Reverend Thomas was presenting, of tangibility, where it moves from rock solid to something more malleable until it reaches a point to where it can only be experienced, which is typical of what is going on with meditation. That communication there is strictly through experience. But it's as we attune our awareness to these different channels, there we go, to these different channels and such, we begin to influence. And our influence begins to expand. And wherever our awareness is at, and we talked about this briefly in our mediumship class, wherever your awareness is at, the information that resonates with it more readily is going to be the information that you will receive sooner. Is all the other information dismissed? No. But it takes longer for it to get there. So as our awareness attunes to these different channels, so to speak, we begin to resonate with these different frequencies, whether you call them higher frequencies or lower frequencies, because in our mediumship class, we experimented with theta waves and gamma waves. For the waking mind, those are two wave patterns at opposite ends of the scale. The theta waves is where we're at typically in our meditations. That's typically as deep as we go, is into the theta waves. Occasionally we bounce into the gamma waves, and that gamma wave is very high. So you've got low and high frequencies that are equally valuable. The high frequency is where you're more hyper-focused. It's where you would feel yourself connected to the divine presence. I think Hertak refers to it as the Shekinah universe. But in that brief moment, you are in that awesome experience there, totally intangible. And it's when we are in this state that our intuition is at work, where it functions the best. Now, intuition always draws on something we've experienced but cannot remember for whatever reason. So as we move into those higher frequencies, it becomes more tuned, more focused. But even though when we're in the theta wave area, which is much slower, much lower, we're still receiving that communication, but it's more of a broader spectrum. So it doesn't make a difference where your awareness goes, whether you're going up or down the scale. All of that information is available. It's just where you happen to be at, that information comes to you quicker, faster, but the rest of it will come slower. So even though we are in a low frequency vibration, all this information that's around us will eventually get to us. It will take longer for it to make the journey. And does anybody have any comments or questions before I wrap this up?
I was just been kind of pondering in my head that aren't we just made up of all the elements? We are carbon units. So, and what's carbon come from? Fire and matter. This is where the physicists can help me out. Yeah. We need air to breathe. Our bodies are these carbon units are mostly composed of water.
Well, and supposedly we contain all the elements of stars.
Oh, that's pretty.
Very good.
Which is
very good. And all those elements are just another form of communication. Would you like to add more, Rachel?
Well, that's all I've got.
Oh, okay. Good connection there. Thank you for that. Sandy, what are your thoughts?
Well, as we were talking about all this and about the mundane cross and the elements, I just wrote a question to myself that they're all things we can experience and feel through our senses is what I, so I, we breathe the air, we're warmed by the fire. The fire can be beautiful, the fire can be destructive. The water can be serene or it can be tumultuous, but it's all part of the experience, that what we experience. And the earth, just think about the smell of the earth, fresh earth. It's wonderful smell, and feeling it in your hands. And I mean, but it's just there's just so much to it. And we really kind of, even if we don't even recognize it, we probably experience these things all the time. We just don't even notice. But they're really entwined in they are us. They are. I liked what Rachel said about being the stars, but I liked what Beth said too about the carbon units, and that we are, that's what we are. But it kind of lends it to this thought too, is that we are in it and of it, I guess. So anyway, this is really interesting.
And what is experience? Experience is like having radio, TV, telephone, books, all at the same time. That's truly mass communication. Because if you dissect your experience, you'll see these different levels or different frequencies, however you want to put it. But experience, everybody's on the right track with experience. Experience is on multiple levels. One of the things that I'm trying to bring about or to make us aware or look at differently is the idea that communication is so multifaceted that it is far-reaching, far more than what we can imagine. Oh, and Reverend Thomas, what are your thoughts?
In the multifaceted, infinite universe, every particle of it has the capacity to communicate. And that's probably the most beautiful point to leave this with, is that that communication comes in so many levels, and to be ready to allow it and accept it, because it may come in forms that are unexpected. Great topic, Reverend Philip.
Thank you. Good summarization. And Sharon.
I really don't have anything to add, because I've just listened to all this, and it educated me, and I feel real good about everything I heard. And good job, everybody. Yep.
Excellent. Well, then I'm going to close with this. As the awareness of the stream increases and our ability to respond and in turn influence the stream of information here, or the stream of consciousness, its flow alters our resonant field, and our conscious zone or sphere evolves. Not only does it expand, but it evolves. And I'm going to say thank you for allowing me to share that with you, and I want to thank all of you for your participation. Thank you very much.